I started a series about domination to explain it from a neuroscientific perspective. This is number 4, but I might replace the previous ones and start over with this one. Because when I tried to make this video, I turned out to be pretty hard. I wanted to make it about what recognition means, what recognizing something means, and why you recognize things, and what's the importance of it in relation to domination. But that's very hard because it has so many aspects. So I'm taking a different approach now. And I first talk about control, because we all know, probably we have encountered in our lives, talk about control feedback loops. And that's a very understandable concept, and it's also a very important one. So I have this schematic, and we'll just use high-level language. We need to develop a little bit of a vocabulary if we want to talk about this. But the brain imagines something, then it acts, and then it matches what it experiences from outside with what it has imagined to see if there's a sufficient match, and then you're done. And that this is a control loop that works. For instance, if you want to make a sandwich, then you imagine a sandwich, you go out to the kitchen, you do all kinds of stuff until at one point you find you have a sandwich, and then you're satisfied. And on a lower level, of course, in order to make this sandwich, you have to get the bread, cut the bread, get some butter if you like butter, put some materials on there, do all kinds of things. But the principle is always the same, because you want to make a sandwich, you know you have to go to the kitchen, you imagine the kitchen, and then you act and move until you find yourself in the kitchen, and then you're satisfied, and you won't imagine that anymore. So, and this control loop, this way of controlling, is the ubiquitous and the only way that the brain controls our body. And that, I think, should be the message of this video, is that the only thing the brain does is create an image, and then, of course, because it has a motoric side, it can release that motoric side, which is a long story, but then you start moving to create that image as an outside perception. And once that happens, you're satisfied, and you won't want to do that anymore. Now, it's important to the main thing that I will focus on if I continue talking about this is the imagined part, because we underestimate that part. Usually, when you talk about control, you say, okay, you have different alternatives, and you make a choice, and then you have a series of milestones that you go through. If you have a project plan, and that's what you do. But of course, it doesn't. The real control and the real domination, if you want to go into that later, is not in the decision between the alternative. It is between, on a neural sense, in the brain, for the brain perspective, it is about maintaining those images, those imagined situations. So, if you are being persuaded not to go to the disco tonight, then it is about being able to imagine that disco as your goal, and being no longer able to imagine it in your brain, resulting in the fact that you're no longer behaving to go to that disco. So it is about being able to imagine things that ultimately controls us. And that's why this loop is a little bit incorrect, and I'll change it in the next video. And there's lots more to say about it, but I'll stop here for this video then.